Well, he never gave me that ring. I tried several times, but never really got him to talk again. But you know who did give him a ring? Federal prosecutors. Today in federal court, they expected a guilty plea from William Boyland, but they didn't get it. Our Pat Bailey was there today as it became very clear that that plea deal fell apart, and Mr. Boyland will fight on. Pat, what do you have?
Well, Greg, he will, in fact, fight on all the way to a December 2nd trial date now. As you mentioned, federal prosecutors were all set for William Boyland Jr. to come here to federal court in Brooklyn and plead guilty. We do not know the terms of the plea deal they gave him. Of course, obviously, they do, and they were under the assumption Boyland Jr. was going to take it. They were visibly shocked today in court when they found out that Boyland will, in fact, now choose to roll the dice and go to trial December 2nd. Speaking of Mr. Boyland, he did, in fact, talk to us, believe it or not, before and after his appearance in court. He really didn't have much to say, a little bit to say, and in fact that sometimes we're making jokes about the situation and our coverage of him. William Boyland Jr. seemed shocked to see us in Brooklyn for his court appearance, remembering our faces from chasing him around the Capitol. Were you expecting? Same guy. That's not him. He's been following you around for a couple of years now. That's the same guy.
Oh, that's not him.
Do you want to repay the money to the taxpayers?
For 2 years, we have been trying to get answers from the Brooklyn Assemblyman accused of taking cash in exchange for passing legislation and billing the state of New York nearly $70,000 for travel expenses he did not earn. When's the last time you were in Albany?
Don't comment, buddy. Thanks. Nice try.
Will you ever comment at all?
In the end. At the end.
What are you waiting for?
When we're exonerated. No comment, though.
So you feel like you're innocent?
That would be no comment again.
Boyland is one of a handful of state lawmakers indicted or arrested this past year alone. Many, like him, on corruption charges. How prevalent is corruption in Albany? Is there corruption in Albany?
No comment, guys.
Boyland, who was expected by federal officials to plead guilty, instead pulled an audible and will now roll the dice on a trial. The trial dates were set. A backup date is in January, the same time lawmakers start a new session at the Capitol. Will you be back in Albany if the trial's in January? Will you go back to Albany for the start of the session?
That's my job, definitely.
You'll be back in Albany?
That's my job. Have a safe trip back up, okay?
All right. See you in January.
Yes, sir.
We may see him in January. That's because that December 2nd trial date is a tentative trial date. The federal judge has another trial set for that day, but it may not go forward. So if it doesn't, William Boyland Jr.'s trial date will be December 2nd. If that previous trial does go forward, it will be pushed back to January 13th. And as you heard him say, that if that trial date is January 13th, he will still be in Albany at the beginning of the legislative session, usually the first or second week of January. And something, Greg, we talked about, William Boyland Jr., let's not forget, going to use a public defender for this trial. Something else taxpayers, especially here in the New York City area, will be paying for.
And that'll be quite a bill, too, I'm sure. Now, you know, I just got Mr. Boyland's per diem expenses for this past year. They were down drastically, so I found that interesting. Maybe he's caught on to the fact that people are watching him. We should also point out that if he had pleaded guilty today, it would be a conviction, and he'd be out of the Assembly. So, as you said, he's coming back in January because right now he's not convicted of anything.
That's right. Obviously, these are all just charges. You're obviously presumed innocent until proven guilty. And part of the plea deal reportedly was that if he did, in fact, plead guilty today, he would have to give up his assembly seat. That's something that happened to Nelson Castro. You'll remember Nelson Castro was a assemblyman from the Bronx. He was wearing a wire for Preet, the U.S. attorney, doing undercover work for him. And part of the plea deal for that was he had to give up his assembly seat. So reportedly, that was what was going to happen today. William Boyland was supposed to show up here, plead guilty, give up his seat. And as the U.S. attorney told me today, was going to, quote, go away for a lengthy amount of time. Now it looks like they're scrambling and now have to get ready for a trial.
And again, we're all going to pay for that again, so we'll keep tabs on that and also keep tabs on Mr. Boyland's travels going forward. We also should point out that he has a special judicial dispensation to travel to Albany because he has to cross state lines from Brooklyn through New Jersey to get up here to Albany, and a judge has to give him special permission to do that because he is facing these federal charges. Pat Bailey reporting live from Brooklyn tonight. Pat, thank you very much.